Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Kamma Hey. We are holding out the Mishnah, which is on Dalad Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Says the Mishnah, Shoir shehu yotzei li sokel. So a bull attacked and killed somebody, and now the Bezdin is going to apply the skila death penalty to the shor. So he's on his way to skila after the Gemar Din, after the verdict was issued. Vigdishay ba'alav. And the owner decides, okay, that's really an opportune time to be magdish, the behema, make it a part of the Beis Hamikdash proper. Ain't magdish? It doesn't work because it's slated for misa. It's no longer his. Shechatoi basari aser. Likewise, if he does shchita to the animal, he may not eat the flesh. And we actually learned this in a sugya the other day. We have a special pasuk for this, that at this point the shor is asher bahana, one cannot benefit from it. That's only when it's at this late stage of the game. But if he catches it a bit earlier, let's say the Bezdin already got involved in judging the case, but they didn't really issue their Gemar Din. Higdish Sheibal of Mugdash. At this point, Hegdish works from Shachti Basari Asr, the Shchita permits the Basar. Part 2 of the Mishnah. Mesarai l'shem rechinam. V'l'shayel. A person has an animal and hands it over to a person for safekeeping. Shem rechinam, for no pay, as a favor, or l'shayel, a person borrowing my animal. A person is going to watch my animal for pay. And finally, a person who's renting my animal. All these individuals now take over my obligations. They step into the owner's shoes. And they take full responsibility, in which case, if the animal causes damage under their watch, they're responsible. And if he's a muad, if the animal is merely vitam, then they pay 50%. An animal who killed somebody, before Gemar Din, before the court issued their verdict, so now if the owner sells the animal, the sale is valid. Now you'll ask, what's the point of buying an animal at this point? In any case, he's going to be put to death. The answer is, as Rashi says, machar hu l'radya, for temporary use, for plowing. Of course, ultimately, when the Bezdin comes back and issues a verdict, they take it from him and they kill the animal. But at this point, it's sold with respect to temporary use. Hegdish and mugdash. Likewise, if he makes it hegdish at this point, it's going to be hegdish, until further notice, until the Bezdin gets involved and it puts the animal to death. And Rashi says once again that nafkamina would be if somebody benefits from the hegdish will not actually be able to use this animal, and sell it or whatever, because it's going to be put to death. But in the meantime, it belongs to a hegdish, and if somebody uses it, diverts it for personal use, he has committed the sin of me'ilah with all its consequences. So the hegdish does get applied. Shchata b'sarei mutar, the shchita permits the basar, and it's sort of too late there. Nothing you can do about it. He shechted it. The basar is mutar. The fourth halacha is chziro shomer l'beis balav muchser. At this point, before the Gemar Din, a shomer who was watching the animal, and the animal attacked under his watch, which pretty much renders him responsible, but he gives it back. But if he decides to return it to the owner at this early point, muhsar, it's done. Because the fact is, even though, and Rashi points out, even though Bezdin is going to come soon and take it, too bad. Because the Shema can claim, look, I gave you back a proper shor here. It's fine. Nothing wrong with it at this point. So he has fulfilled his obligations and he's added the story. So this is all regarding a shor before Gemar Din. But Mishin Gemar Din, once the Gemar Din was issued, it's a done deal. It's a fait accompli. Machar, and a machar, the sale at this point is invalid. Hegdish and mugdash. Likewise, the hegdish is not valid. Shchata b'sari asr. The shchita does not permit the basar. And finally, yechzira yishem robeis balav and muksar. If the shomer who was responsible for this attack decides to give it back to the owner at this point, he has not fulfilled his commitment. He hasn't really given anything back because the shor is now asr b'hana. He has to compensate the owner. Rabbi Yaakov Omer, af mishenigmar dinoi Hechziroi Shemer lebalav muchser. He disagrees on this last point. Even after Gemar Din, if the Shemer decides to return at this late stage, muchser. He has fulfilled his obligations and he walks away. Despite the fact that the Shemer now is practically useless. It's Asur B'Hano. What has he given back to the owner? Yeah, there's a physical animal here, but nothing more than that. There's no access to the animal. There's no benefit from the animal. So what's the machlokes about? So perhaps the machlokes between Rabbi Yaakov, who says, it's called a muchser. It's called returning to the owner, and the Rabbanon who disagree. What's the machlokes about? The Rabbanon Savri ein irman b'isura ano. When it comes to something which is already asur b'hano, that the benefit from it is forbidden, we don't say haresh localfile. Here, take it back. Here's your thing. We don't say that because, after all, it's useless. And therefore, the shayr at this late stage cannot be returned intact as is. It's not worth anything. Rabbi Yaakov Sover, even something which is asr b'hano, well, the shamer can tell the owner, take it back, enjoy it. Is that the machlekes? Amar Rabba, no. The kuli alma, oimrin, b'yisur hano, haresh l'chol. All would agree. Even the Rabbanan would agree that technically, when you have something which is asr b'hano, which was under your care, you can take it and give it back to the owner. Here it is, I walk. No longer responsible. We do that. We allow that to happen. Why? Because if, in fact, as you're suggesting, the Rabbanan disagree on this point, Dimkain, nifloig le'inin chometz Pesach, this machlekes, whether or not you can return Isura or not to the owner, should be applied to a case of, they should discuss a case of returning chametz after Pesach. So let's say I was, borrowing your chametz, or not borrowing, watching your chametz, or stole. Rashi brings the Gemara later of Tzadik Ches. It's a Mishnah. A person steals. Listen to this. A person steals chametz before Pesach, and now it's after Pesach, and this chametz is now practically useless. Can the thief return the chametz? On the one hand, look, here's your chametz. On the other hand, well, now it's useless, right? So there's a Mishnah later on the Tzadik Ches, which says that you can return the chametz intact. So why isn't there a machlekes there? Right? So if the Mishnah discusses chametz with Pesach, and the Mishnah says it works, so apparently that's the shita of Rabbi Yaakov, not the Rabbanon. Rabbanon over there should disagree, right? If there's a disagreement on whether or not you can return Isura or not to its owner, and be exempt, then why don't we discuss this machlekes in the Mishnah of Tzadik Ches? It's a Mishnah, and the Mishnah says it works. And if there's a disputing shita, there's a shita of the Rabbanon who disagree, then they should disagree there too. Why does it seem that they are maida? They agree that one can return chametz after Pesach despite the fact that it's useless. So if in fact there's a machlekes, the imkein nifleg l'inin chametz of Pesach. So why is there no machlekes there? So therefore Rabbi says, no, all agree that when it comes to this question, all agree you can return the Isra no and your pot. But over here by the Shayr who killed, it's a totally different story. The machlekes does not revolve around this general question of whether or not you can return Isra or not. Here there's a very specific question where the Rabbanan hold that although typically you can return Isra or not, like Chametz after Pesach, but here the owner has a claim against the Shema. You brought about my demise. You brought me a loss. You caused the Shayr to become Asher Ba'ana. And Rabbi Yaakov disagrees. Now, how is that? He said typically, when Bezdin gets involved in judging somebody, the person has to be there, has to be present. Now, on a simple level, it's because, when the person is there, he can, he has the ability to defend himself and to, present his case and argue his claims. there's perhaps a deeper realm as well, as we're going to see in a minute, that the Torah requires the Baldin to be present when the Bezdin applies a verdict, plain and simple. That's the halacha. Notwithstanding the practical facets of whether or not he can present his claim, right? So that's the machlekes. How deep does this run? What is the basis for this requirement to have the Baal Din present at the Gemar Din? And basically the question is, does it apply to an animal too, who's going to be, given the Chi of Misa? Does he have to be there or not? That's the machlekes. Machlekes is whether the Bezdin will issue that Misa verdict against a shor when he's not present. The Rabbanan Savri, Ein Goimrin, Dinei Shal Shor El B'fanav. Rabbanan holds, just like by a human being, an animal has to be present when the Bezdin will apply the Chi of Misa, when they will issue that verdict. And therefore the owner can tell the Shomer, what'd you do to my animal? Why'd you let Bezdin take hold of the animal? Or as Rashi says, why'd you give it to them? You should have quickly given it back to me, I would have taken it away. And which would have preempted any sort of Gemar Din, because he needs to be present. The Amalei, the owner, can tell the Shomer, if you would have only given the animal back to me, I would have taken him out to the swamp, out of sight. But now, it's too late. Hashta, today, now, atfasti l'torah, you allowed my animal to be grabbed, to be taken in possession, into the hands of those somebody who I can't really, deal with. In other words, you allowed Bezdin to repossess the animal, to take possession and to issue this verdict. It's all your fault. What are you doing, giving me back a useless animal now? It's all your fault. Rabbi Yaakov Savar, he disagrees. No. Whether or not the shor is there, it's irrelevant. Goimrin dinei shal shor shle b'fanav. Bezdin can issue a verdict on the shor, even if the shor is not physically present. And therefore, the Shomer responds to the owner and says, look, what do you want from me? The Amalei Yosef said, at the end of the day, Migmar Havagamri Ledina, they would have issued the same verdict whether or not I assisted them or not. Okay? So that's why Rabbi Yaakov says that the Shomer has a full right to return the animal and walk away. Whereas the Rabbanan say, no. Sure, theoretically you can return Isra no, but here it's different because you're a Peisheya, you're negligent, you're careless. You caused my loss. My time with the Rabbanan. Why do the Rabbanan say that even a shor has to be present? Because the pasuk compares any verdict issued against a shor to a verdict issued against a person. Hashar yisokal v'gambal v'yimas. So the shor, upon killing a person, gets skila. Also, the owner has an aspect of chiv misa. So we sort of connect the two things. Kemisas ha'balam, kach misas hashor. The same procedure that applies to an owner, to a person who kills a person, which necessitates his presence during the court proceedings. Kach misas hashor, the same with an animal. Ma balam b'fnei, ma shor b'fanav, just like an owner has to be there. And Rashi brings a pasuk ad omdoi lifnei idei lemishpat, that the person has to be present when the Bezdin issues their verdict. Av shor b'fanav, the animal as well. And the fact that you allow the animal to be brought into the court is your issue. Rabbi Yaakov disagrees. Bishleima balam b'nei tananinu. I understand why the owner, basically a person, a human being, he has a right to be present because he can present his tana, his claim, and defend himself to the court. Elashar bar tana, so how could you compare it to an animal? He doesn't have that issue, and therefore there's no point in the shor being there. It's not a requirement, and you have no claim against me. Bottom line, we have a Mishnah. In case one, the shor was already on its way out to skila, totally worthless, useless. Hegdish doesn't work. Mechira doesn't work. Shchita doesn't work. The shomer at this point cannot give the animal back to the before Gemar Din. So the shor, the mechira works, the hegdish works, the shchita works, and the chazora of the shomer base balam works. After Gemar Din, hegdish doesn't work, mechira doesn't work, shchita doesn't work. Regarding returning the shor to the owner, so according to Rabbi's way of understanding, even the Rabbanan would theoretically agree that you can return Isra not to the owner, but here it's different because the owner can claim, look, the shor would have had to have been present at the Gemar Din, and you allowed that to happen, so it's your fault. Rabbi Yaakov disagrees, the shor doesn't have to be there, and therefore there's no claim against the shomer, and at most it's just plain Isra no, for which we say, Haresh l'chol afanecha, here's your item, take it. Okay, now we're holding at phase 2, second part of the Mishnah. Misorei l'shomer chinam l'shoyel. An owner entrusts his animal, deposits his animal with a shomer chinam, a person who's not really getting paid, he's doing it as a favor, and of course his level of obligation is lower than a person who's getting paid. The fact is that a shomer chinam, all he has to do is watch against, guard against negligence, carelessness. But as long as he does some sort of minimal guarding, that's okay. It's called shmira pechusa. Whereas a shomer chinam who's getting paid has a higher level of responsibility. We have the shoyel who borrows. We have the soicher who rents. Where is actually a machlokes tanaim. We're going to see in the Gemara whether his level of his standard of shmira equates to a shomer chinam or to a shomer sachar. Coming up with the Gemara soon. Tanarban, we have a brayso. The following 4 individuals, they sort of step into the owner's shoes and take over his responsibilities in terms of guarding the animal from, protecting the community from the animal. The following 4 are as follows: Shomer Chinam, right? V'ashoyel, Nisisachar v'asoicher. So Shomer Chinam is a fellow who's doing it for free. Shoyel, a fellow who's borrowing the animal, and Nisisachar is getting paid for watching. V'asoicher, and a renter. Hargu. Now let's say the animal does kill a person under his watch. Tam and neherogin uptur min hakayfer. If the animal is a tam, misa still applies to the animal because that's irrespective of whether it's a tam or a muad. But when it comes to kayfer payment, that monetary compensation to the victim's family, that's specific to a muad. So here it's a tam and gets misa, but there's no kayfer payment issued by the shemer. Mu'adim, if the animal is a muad neherogin, misa applies to the animal. Umshalman is hakayfer, and the shemer has to pay the kayfer. Now, in all these cases, where the animal is going to be killed under the shemer's watch, so the shemer has to go and compensate the owner for the value of the animal. Except chutz m'shemer chinam, the fellow who's a shemer chinam, look, he did his best. He doesn't have to do much more than just a little bit. He watched a little bit. He's yotzei, and he no longer has to be worried about compensating the owner. Now, how well was this animal watched? Amri. The question is like this: Hey chidami, what exactly happened? Ida natre, if he watched this animal properly, then afilu kulu namilu patru. So then, anyone except for the shayel who's chayiv even for accidents, but all the other fellows should be patur, should be exempt from compensating the owner. We did our job. Vidile natre, if the animal was not watched, right? He didn't do any shmira. Afilu shemer chinam chayiv. So even a shemer chinam, you're careless. You pay sheya, and a shemer chinam is chayiv for pshia. So what's going on here? Why do we say that? The other fellows are responsible to the owner, but not the shomer chinam. Answer is like this: Amri. So the Bnei Yeshiva responded. Hachav my skin was speaking like this: the natre shmira pechusa. That the fellow watched the animal, but a very minimal type of shmira. Rashi says he put up a fence which can withstand your typical gust of wind, ruach mitzuya. So that's enough for a shomer chinam because he's not really getting paid. As long as I do something and I'm not outright careless, I'm okay. Not with shmira mula, but he didn't really watch it a higher standard of shmira, a better shmira. So when it comes to shomer chinam kosel shmirasei, that's sufficient for his obligations because all he needs to do is not be negligent. It's not really negligent because there is some shmira applied. So he's exempt from compensating the owner for any losses. But hanach lekosel shmiras, when it comes to the other fellows, Rashi says hayulis chazek b'shmirasen. They should have been more diligent, that it should be properly watched, and therefore, just like if it's lost or stolen, they're responsible. So therefore, here as well, if their lower standard shmir did not do the job, they're chayiv. So that explains why the shomer chinam is not responsible to the owner and the others are. Now, Amri, next question. Kiman, Ikar Rabbi May in the Mishnah coming up soon, we're going to have a big machlokes in terms of the chi of shmira. We speak about throughout the whole Masechta, we speak about the owner having to watch his animal, not a shomer chinam, but just a plain owner with his animal. How well does the animal have to be watched? Shmira pechusa, right? Just a minimal shmira, or shmira me'ula, something which can really withstand a hurricane. A real strong fence and time down. How much does the Torah obligate? So there's going to be a big machlokes coming up. Rabbi Meir holds whether the shor is a tam without any violent track records or a muad who's known to be violent. Either way, you have to do the best shmira possible, which is shmira me'ula. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says, interestingly, that a muad, the Meiri explains, he has a bad reputation. Everybody knows this animal's a wild animal. They keep away, so just a little bit shmira is enough. Shmira pechusa suffices, but when it comes to a tam who's new on the block, so there you need a shmira me'ula to be put. So getting back to our Bryce, we have a Shemer Chinam who apparently did some sort of Shmira, but was not too successful. The animal went out and killed. So the Shomer has to pay kaifer if in fact the animal was a muad, because muad triggers kaifer. And in terms of the obligation to the owner, we already discussed it, right? Fine. Now, come on. Ikar Rab Meir is the Mishnah following Rab Meir, who says that the muad, and as well as the tam, needs a shmira ma'ula. You need to watch it, more than just plain minimal. You have to give a real proper watch in order to be potter from any damages, including kaifer. So then, we have a question. Rab Meir holds the Amar Shomer K'Shemechinam Dami. He holds that a Seicher K'Shemechinam Dami. In terms of those four Shomer, we have the Shemer Chinam, who's doing it, as a favor. We have the Shemer Secher, who's watching it for pay, and we have the Seicher, sort of in between. He's renting it, so he's not really getting paid for his services, but he's enjoying it because he's using. So the question is, what level of shmir is required there? So according to Rab Meir, this is the discussion above Mitzvah. Meir holds that a Seicher is treated like he's under the same, sort of guidelines as the Shemer Chinam, in which case his level of shmira with respect to the owner is just basic shmira. So according to him, listening, chutz m'shemer chinam v'aseicher. So when the Brisa says, there are two parts to the Brisa, right? One is in terms of obligations to the victim. So the animal gets killed and kaifer is paid out to the victim if in fact the killer was a muad, and it's paid out by the shemer. Then there was another point to the Brisa. What about my obligations to the owner of the animal? So we said that you always have to repay the owner for any losses, except for the shemer chinam, as we explained, because there was a basic shmira done and no longer responsible to the owner. So if the seicher has the same, obligations of the shemer chinam vis-a-vis the owner, so the Brisa should stipulate that the shemer chinam need not repay the owner, including a seicher as well. And the Brisa doesn't say that; it only mentions shemer chinam. So it doesn't work out according to Rabbi Meir. Vik Rabbi Yehuda. And okay, let's explore Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar Seicher K'Nei Sechadam. He holds that a renter has the same level of shmira obligations, to the owner, like a shemer sachar. He needs to do a more advanced type of shmira. So we understand why the Brisa only exempts a shemer chinam from repayment to the owner, because the seicher needs to do a better shmira, which he didn't do. But the problem is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we have another kasha on the Brisa, because fine, we addressed his obligations to the owner of the animal. What about his obligations to the victim's family? Right, there are two parts to the Brisa. So the Brisa says if the animal who killed was a muad, the shemer has to pay kaifer, right? Because you have to pay kaifer for a muad who kills. However, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we just mentioned that according to Rabbi Yehuda, if a person does a shmira pechusa, a basic shmira, that suffices for a muad, right? We have to keep track of two separate things going at the same time. One is his obligations to the owner of the animal, okay, and then his obligations to the victim or the victim's family. So in terms of his obligations to the owner, we understand it works, because only a shemer chinam is entitled to that basic shmira. So we understand why the Brisa only exempted the shemer chinam from his, compensation obligations to the owner of the animal. But what about his kaifer payment to the victim? So the Brisa should stipulate that you should know none of these people, shemer chinam, seicher, all these guys are potter from paying kaifer to the victim's family, because we're speaking that he did a shmira pechusa, which is enough for a muad. Right. So again, Vik Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar Seicher K'Nei Sechadam, according to Yehuda, Seicher is equated to K'Nei Sechar regarding his obligations to the owner of the animal. So we understand that in this case, since it was just a shmira pechusa, that's not sufficient for a K'Nei Sechar who needs to do a shmira me'ula and a seicher as well. So these people have to repay the owner. But in terms of compensation to the victim, Nisni, the Brisa should say chutz. Everybody has to pay kaifer except chutz m'shemer chinam v'kulam b'mu'adam turn and a kaifer. So the Brisa should say chutz m'shemer chinam. So firstly, when it comes to repaying the owner, shemer chinam is potter from paying the owner because he did a shmira pechusa. And likewise, v'chulam, any type of shemer b'mu'adam, if the animal was a mu'ad, which typically triggers kaifer to the victim's family, well, in this case, since he did a shmira pechusa, they're pturin l'nei kaifer. There's no payment of kaifer. So basically, he's stuck. Who's speaking in this Brisa? Is there a mayor doesn't work or really doesn't work? Amar Rav Huna bar Chidon, Hamani Rabbi Lezer. Oh, it's going like Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer, the Amar ein lo shmira l'saken. So he holds that a shmira pechusa, a basic shmira, is not sufficient. He holds certainly by a muad, the only way to really address the muad is by way of a knife, basically. Do a shchita, that's it. So certainly a shmira pchusa, basic shmira, as this fellow did in this case, doesn't work. So if it's a muad, you have to pay kaifer. So that addresses that part of the price. And regarding his obligations to the owner of the animal, he holds that a seicher is equated to a shemer sachar. Basic shmira does not really address his obligations, and therefore all these types of people have to pay the owner back for their lost animal. If they only did a shmira pchusa, except for shemer chinam, by whom a shmira pchusa is enough. So perfect. So the price again has two parts. We have all these shemrim who were supposed to wash the animal, who went out and killed. If the animal is a muad, kafir payment is in place, despite the fact that they did some sort of basic shmira. It's not enough for a muad. What about, do they have to repay the owner for the lost animal? So everybody does, except for shemer chinam, where shmira pchusa is enough for him. Abaya Amar, I'll give you another teretz. The brisa can work perfectly according to Rabbi Meir as well. So again, regarding the kaifer payment to the victim's family, they're all responsible, because according to Rabbi Meir, we're going to see soon, only way to exempt from kaifer or damages by a tam or a muad is if he did a shmira mu'ula, advanced shmira, which he didn't do in this case. That's good. What about his chiyuvim to the owner of the animal? They all have to pay except for a shemer chinam, who did a shmira pchusa, which is enough for him. What about the seicher? Well, according to Abaye, we're going to have a version where a Meir holds that a seicher is not like a shemer chinam. So a seicher is equated to a shemer sachar and has the same obligations as a shemer sachar. So the only fellow who's pater with a shmira pchusa is a shemer chinam. Look at Rabbi Meir, look at the machlef, Rabbi Baravo, and we're going with Rabbi Baravo as sort of flip. But Tani, he had a different girsa, seicher keset mishalam. What are the renter's obligations? Rabbi Meir Emer shemer sachar. He's like a shemer sachar. Shmira pchusa, basic shmira, does not address his obligations. Rabbi Daima shemer chinam. So basically, according to Rabbi Meir, it works perfectly. In terms of compensation obligation to the owner of the animal, the only one that's exempt with the shmira pchusa is Rabbi Meir. So bottom line is, once again, we have a brisa with two parts. A shemer who's in charge of the animal, whether it's a shemer chinam, shemer sachar, a seicher, or a shoyel. The animal goes out and kills, the animal is put to death. If the animal happens to be a muad, there's kafir compensation to the family. What about the owner? What does he get back? So they all have to repay except for the shemer chinam. What's going on? What exactly happened in this price? We have two approaches. Either we're going with Rabbi Lezer. So basically, what happened was this fellow washed the animal, but just a basic shmira, a shmira pchusa, a minimal shmira, which does not really exempt him from kaifer. So if the animal's muad and killed, you have to pay kaifer. So that applies to everybody in the brisa. Does he have to repay the owner of the animal? So the only one that's exempt with the shmira pchusa is the shemer chinam. Or we're going to Rabbi Meir, who once again requires a shmira mu'ula to be exempt from kaifer, which didn't happen in this place. So all have to pay kaifer. Regarding repaying the owner, the only one that's pata with a shmira pchusa is shemer chinam. Perfect. Okay. Says the Gemara, Anu Allah, Amar Blaza, Masar Shomer l'Shemer Chinam. So I give my animal to a Shemer Chinam, Hizek Chayev. If he goes out and causes damage, the Shemer Chinam is Chayev. Huzak, but if the animal is damaged by others, Potter, the Shemer Chinam is not Potter. Why? Ambri. Questions like this. Hechetami. What exactly happened? Id Kibul Alei Shmiras Nizakav, if the Shemer undertook to guard from harm, so even if the harm was inflicted on my animal, he's chayav. Now, if for some reason the shemer says, "Look, I'm not responsible for any, violence," so then likewise, if my animal went out and caused others damage, so he should be potter. Certainly, the shemer undertook to guard from any violence. So why this distinction? Was speaking, the Shomer totally understood. He knew that my animal is a wild beast, totally, out of control. Now, at this point, we assume that when the Shomer, undertook, responsibility for the animal, he certainly knew what he was getting himself into. I'm going to watch your animal from going out and killing other people. But he thought that this animal is so intimidating on the animal community that nobody will dare come over and attack him. So it wasn't really part of his undertaking. The day to have others come and attack this animal, it was the wildest, it was the farthest from his thoughts. And Rashi says, he knows that the animal community keeps far away from this wild beast. So he didn't think others would come dare attack him, and he didn't take responsibility for that. So it's just a one-way responsibility. He knew what he was getting himself into in terms of watching others from him, but not the other way. Okay, now we finally get to the Mishnah regarding the various levels of Shmirah, and what are our obligations regarding Shmirah of a tam or a muad. Kshari balav b'meisera v'nal b'fanav karoi. So an owner tied up his animal with with reins, with a chain, v'nal b'fanav karoi, and locked the door properly. Karoi, Rashi says, is shmira pachusa, meaning a door which can withstand the regular wind. So it's not hurricane-proof, but it's enough for typical situations. V'yatsa v'hizik, and the animal crashed out and was mazik. Echad tam v'echad mod chay. The Rameir holds whether it was a tam or a mod, I'm chay, because you need shmira mu'ula to guard against an animal's violence. Rabbi Yehuda tam chayev. By a tam, I have to really watch it well. And since in this case he just did a shmira pechusa, it's chay, but if the animal was a muad is pater, because just a bit of shmira is enough for a muad. Ironically, shanamar v'lei shmira ba'alav v'shamar uzeh. The pasuk in describing a muad attacking due to the owner's lack of shmira v'lei shmira ba'alav indicates to us that any sort of even basic shmira is enough. V'shamar uzeh. After all, this animal was being watched. Even a basic shmira suffices. That is Shita number 2. Rabbi Yehuda, when it comes to a muad, there's nothing that's going to watch him. Ein lo yishmira, the only way to really address the muad el asakan with a knife, shchita. So bottom line is, in the Mishnah we have 3 shitas. According to Rabbi Meir, you need a shmira mu'ula for a tam or a muad. According to Rabbi Yehuda, shmira mu'ula is required for a tam, but for a muad, shmira pachusa is enough. Rabbi Yehuda holds, when it comes to a muad, you're chayiv unless you shechter. My time to Rabbi Meir. Why does Rabbi Meir require a higher level of shmira for both tam and muad? Because he holds like this. The starting point is stam shvarim lav becheskas shimur kaimi. Rashi explains, ein adam mishamer shoyre klal al manich v'yehte. Typically, people aren't really paranoid. They're not ultra careful about their animal going and being mazik. People just let their animals roam around, hoping for the best. So that's sort of the default position. And therefore the Torah comes back and says, that's not a way to go. If your tam animal strikes, you have to pay. Because the Torah, by doing that, by telling us that, is indicating, no, don't just let your animal roam around without supervision. So you need a shmira pechusa. So it sort of lifts it up one notch up, to a shmira pechusa basic level. But now by muad, the Torah again repeats. Hold it, he didn't watch it. What do you mean he didn't watch? He does watch. He didn't watch it extra special. The Torah, by adding this expression, this phrase of Leish Merenu, is telling us, look, I know you're watching it with a shmira pechusa, but it's not enough. You want to be sure? Got to tie it down for real. And now we know that a muad requires a more advanced type of shmira, and we apply that to tam as well through gzera shava. V'yolaf negichel tam, negichel muad, we have gzera shava. Negicha by tam, negicha by muad, we connect the two. Just like muad requires an advanced shmira, likewise a tam. So pretty straightforward. According to our mayor, shmira pechusa is not enough. You need a shmira mu'ula by tam and by muad. Rabbi Yehuda, he disagrees. Starting point is, default position is people do watch their animals somewhat. Rabbi Yehuda, stam shvarim becheska shimur kaimi. The assumption is people do keep an eye on their animals, but just a basic shmira. Amar Achmana comes the Torah and says your animal caused damage as a tam nishal, you have to pay. Why? What do you mean? Didn't boil the shmira mula? The Torah is sending a message. Look, basic shmira is not enough in your shmira mula. So the Torah sort of bumps it up by tam. But then by muad, the Torah sort of repeats itself unnecessarily, right? He didn't watch. Which indicates once again you need an advanced shmira. So it's a repetition, and that you know that when we have this type of duplication, have a ribuy achar ribuy. The halach is that when we have a ribuy after a ribuy, expansion after expansion, right? Advance after advance, Ve'ein riboy achar riboy l'lamayit. That's the halacha. We have a double riboy. Torah says once, go up to a mula. Again, go up to shmira mula. The Torah, by doing that, is being a mayit. It's actually restricting it, limiting it, and telling you that you don't really need miyet hakos of the shmira mula. Shmira mula is only there, but over here, any sort of shmira is enough. So bottom line is, by tam, you need a shmira mula, and by muad, a basic shmira is enough. Okay, so now perhaps let's apply the Gzeru Shava of Rabbi Meir. We have Nagicha stated by Tam, Nagicha by Muad, and we'll say just like by Muad, basic Shmira is enough by Tam as well. No, we have a mute. This basic level Shmira suffices for Muad and not for Tam. Why? Hamid Rachmanu, Leishmiranu, Lezev Lelachar. It said he didn't watch this animal, the Muad. So this basic Shmira is enough for him and not for the other one for the Tam. What do you mean? You need it for the lav, meaning he didn't watch it. The Torah is telling you he didn't watch it properly, so it's a pasuk needed for itself. It's not, you can't use it for another drasha. Well, no, in Cain, if it's only for that. You should just say, he didn't watch. My knew he didn't watch him. This exemption only applies to him, to the muad, but the tam requires a shmira mula. Tani or Blezer Yaakov, we have another shita. Echad tam v'chad muad sheshamra. Sheshamra shmira pechusa pater. Whether it's a tam or a muad, even a basic shmira is enough. My time, why? So like Rabbi Yehuda, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar muad v'shmira pechusa sagila. He holds that a muad, shmira pechusa is enough. And he applies that to tam as well. V'yolaf negicha l'tam negicha l'muad. And he has a Gzeru Shava, it says negicha by tam and negicha by muad. And therefore, in both cases, shmira pechusa is enough. So ultimately we have four shittas. Right? So we have Rabbi Meir who says tam and muad are the same for shmira mula. We have Rabbi Yehuda, tam and muad are the same for shmira pechusa. We have Rabbi Yehuda who says tam needs a shmira mula, muad a shmira pechusa. Rabbi Yehuda, or Rabbi the Mishnah says muad, there's no way to control him, only thing is shchita. Now we're going to focus on Rabbi Yehuda's shita, who says animal muad, well, shmira pechusa is enough. Amar Vada bar Ava, leipata, Rabbi Yehuda only says ptur if he did a shmira pechusa on a muad, only on the muad part of him. Ela tzad ha'adah shaboy. Aval tzad tamus b'mkoymai medus. Every muad has within him a hidden tam, sort of 50% tam, upon which the muad aspect of the animal rides, so to speak. So a muad which developed into a tam never lost, so to speak, is a tam identity. So every muad is really sort of a half tam as well. And Rav Ada Bar Ava has been machalish to us. He's saying that, well, this low-level shmira that according to Rabbi Yehuda addresses a muad is only the 50% muad in the animal, but the part of it that's still a tam requires a higher level shmira. So basically, if you did only a shmira pechusa, the muad part, okay, that is pata from, but he has to pay the tam part. He has to address half the damages. Amar Rav, here comes another halacha. Muad, you can have a tam and a muad within the same animal again. Muad l'keren yamin, the animal is known to strike with his right horn, right? He's violent with his right horn, the stronger one. Ein muad l'keren shmoel, if he strikes with his left horn, he's just a tam. So let's say, you only did a shmira pechusa, that's good for the right side, but not for the left side. Says the Gemara Amri. So the question is like this: Aliba de man. This halacha of Rav, who's shita in terms of Rav Meir? Who are we following now? Who does it pertain to? Aliba de Rav Meir. Is it going to Rav Meir? It doesn't matter whether it's the right horn or the left horn. Either way, you need a shmira mu'ula, right? According to Rav Meir, there's no difference. Ha'amar echad tam v'echad muad. Shmira mu'ula ba. You need advanced shmira. So what's the difference if it's the right or left? Aliba de Rav Yehuda. If it's going to Rav Yehuda, who says that a tam needs a shmira mu'ula, but a muad a shmira pechusa, so then why do we have to sort of go find an animal with this horn and that horn? Every muad, at least according to Rav Ada Bar Ava's chiddush, every muad really is partially a tam with respect to the shmira standards. My area keren smile. Why do we have to say, well, the left horn is different than the right horn? I feel be minami. Even if he strikes with his right horn, who's a muad, nami is beitzat tamas. There's an aspect of tam in there as well. Vis beitzat mu'edis, an aspect of mu'ed. Amri's answer is like this. Loyal Rabbi Yehuda. Rab's halacha with the horns is following Rabbi Yehuda, who says that a tam requires shmira mu'la, which is the left horn. The right horn, a mu'ed, suffices with shmira pechusa. So the question was, why do we need horns? Just focus on one horn, and the tam part of that horn, so to speak, has its own guidelines. No, it doesn't hold like the Rabbi Yehuda who said that every mu'ed, regarding shmira is still partially a tam. Therefore, Rav comes and says, look, only in this type of case where the animal sort of, uses his right horn to attack and not his left horn, there you have a tzad, an aspect of tam, an aspect of mu'ed within the same animal. Of mu'ed the gamra, but if it's really mu'ed completely with both horns, tam is klal. We don't have an aspect of tam within the animal, which would only trigger a chatzi nezek payment, because there's no such thing, because he doesn't hold this idea that regarding shmira, the mu'ed is still partially a tam, and a shmira pechusa, which is good for the mu'ed, would not address the tam part. An animal is one big animal, therefore we don't differentiate. But when it comes to two horns, that's a totally different part. That's this side of the animal, that side of the animal. So with his right horn, he's a mu'ed. With his left horn, he's a tam. With all its, ramifications. Okay. So we had a Mishnah, a shor that's going for skila. After the Gemar Din is totally worthless. Mechira doesn't work, Hegdish doesn't work, etc., etc. Before Gemar Din, Mechira works temporarily, Hegdish works as well. Shchita is mata the basar. And regarding the shomer, who's holding onto this animal, who wants to quickly return it before he runs out of time. So before the Gemar Din, the Chazara works. Afterwards, we have Machlekes, Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbanan, whether or not he can do so, and it's totally in the shaila of whether the Gemar Din could have happened without the shor present, and whether the shomer is responsible for bringing about that loss. We have the brisa of the shomrim; they're responsible vis-a-vis the victim, vis-a-vis the owner of the animal. We had a case of a shor who's known to be a nakhan. The shomer presumably only took responsibility for him being mazik others, but he assumed he's not going to be messed around with other animals. The animals are not going to mess with him, and therefore he was not willing to undertake. He didn't think he has to guard, and he's not chayiv on that. Then we have the various shittas regarding the standards of shmira required by the tam, by the mu'ed. We had Rabbi May, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lezer in the Mishnah, and Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov in the Gemara. All the best, even Atzlacha Rabbah.